So just before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick shout out to what is quite possibly the most apt sponsorship I've ever come across for Vivec. Oftentimes I'll decline, 99.9% of sponsorship deals I come across, because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these COZYSNUG sleep earbuds from LYTMI really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of ear wings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code VIVEC for 10% off your order. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LYTMI for reaching out, I really appreciate it. A journey into the world of the insane. A Morning Glory Trip report by Queek, posted to EARBUDS.org, February 25th, 2007. I suppose I should start with my history, to help bring you into my mind. My most extensive psychoactive substance experience has been with marijuana, for a little over 4 years now. I've consumed alcohol, but extremely infrequently, perhaps 10 times in my entire life. This past 2 years I've delved into the world of magic, and an important part of that world seemed to be psychedelics and hallucinogens. The true hallucinogens, mandrake, datura, nightshade, henbane, etc., interested me greatly, but I wisely decided to begin with psychedelics, LSD, peyote, oliqui, mushrooms, etc., to expand my mind so I would be prepared to truly hallucinate. I began with a few salvia sessions, one intense but short Kalia dream last night, and a very light but absolutely wonderful mushroom trip at the end of summer. After that I had no access to anything illegal besides marijuana for 6 months, so I looked into the legal drugs. Nutmeg was readily available, and I experimented extensively upon myself and others with that incredibly powerful substance. After that came a few DXM trips. Never more than a 4-ounce bottle of Robitussin maximum strength cough though. And finally, after discovering that morning glory seeds were similar to LSD, and also available at any store, I decided to give them a try as well. It took quite a while to remember to look for them, but once I did, it was a simple $10 purchase away. My first experiment was ill-informed. I ate 1.5 grams of flying saucer seeds whole, but mixed with applesauce for some reason. I think I chewed at least most of them a little bit, but they had almost no effect, or at least no noticeable one other than a bit of nausea. My second experiment was only half as ill-informed. I ground 9 grams of pearly gate seeds up in a coffee grinder, then put them in cold water mixed with some pure lemon juice, and let them sit in the refrigerator for an hour or so. I left the seed mush in, and it settled into 3 layers, one light greenish, one darker green and yellow with small chunks, and one greyish with most of the seed chunks. At 3 PM, I started to drink it. I made it through the first layer and a little bit of the second before the taste made me feel nauseous. The mix of lemon juice and the seeds was awful to say the least. After this I had a sickening feeling in my stomach which did not go away for the rest of the night. This was accompanied by a body high that was more like a body low. I felt like I had seasickness, even though I've never really had seasickness before. I just assumed that this is what it feels like. I vomited perhaps 4 times in my whole life, always from extreme sickness. Within 45 minutes of drinking the morning glory seed water, I barely made it to the toilet in time to puke up everything I've ever eaten in my whole life, and then some. A miserable feeling indeed, and the trip wasn't a trip, it was mostly just a body feeling. I decided that next time I would do the ritual fasting, eat ginger, and smoke a small amount of marijuana as precautions against the intense nausea. My third, and I believe its successful trip went as follows. On Thursday, I thoroughly washed 9 grams of heavenly blue morning glory seeds with Dawn dishwashing liquid in a colander, and then rinsed those 9 grams extremely thoroughly, but being careful not to let the seeds soak at all. I then set them on a paper towel under the stove fan to dry. After 30 minutes or so, they were dry, and I ground them up in a coffee bean grinder. After collecting 99% of the powder, I transferred it to a large cup which I had filled with applesauce. I stirred it in thoroughly so that it was well mixed, and then I left it in my refrigerator. This was at approximately noon. From then on, I did not eat anything that day. I stayed up late and went to sleep rather tired. At 11:30 am on Friday, I awoke and rather spontaneously decided to consume the applesauce at noon. I took a shower and cleansed myself, got dressed in comfortable clothes, and went downstairs. I drank the applesauce infusion of morning glory seeds at noon, as I had decided 30 minutes before. I was alone, and would be up until 4 PM or so, at which point I would be with my family for the rest of the evening. This was not the best setting to be in while tripping, and my mindset was reasonable, although not the best either. But like I said, it was a spontaneous decision, and nothing drastic had happened during my last 2 experiments. So at noon, I ate a small amount of raw dried ginger root, gross stuff I must say, and then ate the applesauce, which 98% masked the seed taste. Very good. It's not a nauseating taste to me. Sometime within the next hour I noticed I was a bit giggly at the computer, and I was thinking a bit oddly, which isn't unusual for me, but it was noticeable. Approximately 1 PM, I felt disoriented and kind of like, what the fuck is going on right now? But not really in that much of a bad way. I stumbled out to the garage to smoke a small quantity of marijuana, and I mean really small, like a quarter of a bowl, still mostly in control of my thoughts and actions. I wandered back inside after getting semi-lost walking around my house because all of the doors were locked except for the original one I had exited from. I stepped in mud and got kind of confused as to how to deal with this unpleasant mini-crisis. I ended up brushing most of it off in the grass in my front yard and stumbling back into the house. I felt somewhat in a fog and had nausea, but it was minor, thanks to the weed mostly. I was bored, but in a kind of depressed way. I craved social interaction and knew that there was none to be had. I wanted to be with someone else who was tripping, but no one was. I couldn't even tell anyone I was tripping. But nobody would be there to tell for 4 hours anyway. For most of those 4 hours I felt slightly nauseous, but it was minimal, and I felt no desire or need to puke, especially if I lay down in one spot for a while. I decided watching a movie would be great for keeping me entertained while I lay down and wait for the nausea to dissipate. I put Not Another Teen Movie on. I lay down on the couch and watched it. It took about an hour longer than it should have because I would rewind at every scene at some point because I wanted to check if things I'd seen in the background were real. They were. And during the musical number, I rewound it and watched it at least 10 times, maybe more. Because one part was absolutely hilarious, and one part was beautiful. By the time the movie was done, my family was almost home. I was feeling extremely spaced out and foggy, and I spent an hour laying on the couch looking at the wall and ceilings, which now had patterns on them. Not particularly trippy patterns, but very obvious, noticeable, realistic patterns, which changed over the course of the day, depending on what I was thinking about. Also, the sun shining through the window made a tiny rainbow on the wall, a prism effect, which was incredibly cool and interesting to me. Things got a bit harder to deal with when I had to interact with people. When my family finally got home at around 4, my mind was fully transformed into the brain of someone who is clinically insane. I felt like my thought had been changed from mostly linear to mostly random. I could follow conversations somewhat, but my insights and comments were random and off the wall to everyone else. They made sense, but the path I followed to get to my conclusions was completely erratic. The jokes I made were funny, but only to me, because half of the joke was something I was thinking about at the time. I solved this problem of sounding like an insane person whenever I opened my mouth by not talking as much as possible. The simplest comments like, "Thank you," were odd and awkward sounding to me, so I tried to avoid people. Most of the time I felt like I was watching the world from about 10 feet behind my eyes, and I could reconnect when I needed to, but I was still a bit distanced from typical reality. The whole time I felt alone and was somewhat depressed that I didn't have anyone to share this experience with. I thought a lot about the fact that I didn't have any huge passion in life or definite direction to go. Normally this is liberating to me, but the morning glory seeds liberated my mind so much that it wanted and needed something solid to anchor it. I had nothing. No solid goal, no driving purpose. And when I was lost in the land of infinity that my Friday night had become, this was scary and depressing. It is definitely a daytime drug, unlike shrooms. I've never actually used a sitter, but I have tripped with people and I enjoy it immensely, being a very social person. By about 8 PM, I was ready to go to sleep just to escape the madness. Literally, I had gone crazy, but not extremely crazy, and I knew it. I didn't want to be crazy alone, and it was unpleasant as hell to know that until I was done being crazy, I was alone. Truly alone. Because the thing that binds us together as a society is the fact that generally, we think alike. We assume at least some of the same things, and act usually in the same way in response to stimuli. Well, I was off in another world, thinking much differently from anyone around me, with all the oddities of behaviour that this entails. I wanted to go to sleep and wake up sane again, with some kind of self-certainty about my life path. Once in bed, I noticed something which was absent, aside from the wall and ceiling patterns, during the light part of the trip. In mostly darkness, things began to have colours that I knew weren't their real colours. It was subtle, but my walls were bluish and greenish, and a poster I have of a black and white fingerprint began pulsing and swirling in a subtle manner as well. The colours swirled a bit too, and the ceiling patterns gained some colours at this point as well. I believe I began to notice the colours because of the minimal light, and the colours were by no means bright or vibrant. As a matter of fact, they reminded me of the voices I heard while under the influence of Salvia Divinorum. I didn't really hear the voices, I just knew in my mind that the voices existed, and what they were saying. In the same manner, I knew that there were colours, and my eyes tried to catch up and show me these colours, but it wasn't a vibrant or intense knowledge, so the colours were subtle. It was interesting nonetheless though, since I've yet to try LSD or have enough mushrooms to truly alter the colours and perspective much, and yet the morning glory seeds did this, albeit only minorly. I woke up at 3 in the morning, which was the first time I knew I'd fallen asleep. My thoughts had slipped into hypnagogia, and my hypnagogia into dreams. So I woke up at 3, rather surprised that I'd been asleep. I checked my eyes in the mirror, and they weren't dilated anymore, but I still felt a bit off baseline, kind of an after effect. I went back to sleep and woke up the next morning feeling better, but with the knowledge burnt into my head that this was a trip that I should take with friends and during the day next time. The best way to describe what I felt like during the whole trip was insane. Not minorly so either, but severely insane. I was crazy. I had taken a trip into a world of madness from which I could not escape. The world appeared so simple and yet so unfathomably complex to me. I was crazy, and I knew it. Morning glory seeds are not a toy, and I got the feeling during the trip that the spirit contained in the seed experience is an old and harsh one. It was definitely male, with 2 sides. He is hell on my stomach and body. But the mental voyage is fantastic. It is not hard to gain entrance into the world of oliloquy. It simply requires intelligence. As per usual, gonna read out the Psychonaut Wiki article on morning glory seeds. So there's actually a warning here that says commercial seeds are often treated with fungicides. It is important to note that each seed is treated with fungicides and other toxic substances, which can further exacerbate the toxicity levels. Morning glory, also written as morning glory, morning-glory even, is the common name for over 1,000 species of flowering plants in the family Convolvulaceae that belong to many genera, whose current taxonomy and systematics are in flux. Morning glory seeds in the context of psychonautics is a term used to describe a few species that contain LSA. Agria nervosa is a rare example of a plant whose healing properties were not recognised until recent times. While several of its cousins in the Convallaceae family, such as Revia corbosa or lilaquy and Ipomoea tricolor, titilazin, these are some seriously hard to pronounce words, were used in shamanic rituals of Latin America for centuries, A. nervosa was not traditionally used for this purpose. Huna shamans used A. nervosa according to various oral histories. Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds is a popular legal high. However, despite the higher concentration of alkaloids in the woodrose seeds, the trip is generally experienced as somatically unpleasant. Anti-nausea drugs such as diphenhydramine, cyclizine, meclizine, or trimethylbenzamide may be taken beforehand to prevent nausea from morning glory seeds. Some users report that drinking either ginger tea or a glass of orange juice mixed with grated ginger and a chopped garlic clove greatly reduces nausea from morning glory seeds. So what is LSA? So I've covered LSA quite a few times before, and LSA is known as lysergic acid amide, also known as ergine or ergine, D-lysergic acid amide, D-lysergamide, and LSA, which is a naturally occurring psychedelic substance of the lysergamide class, or lysergamide, however you want to pronounce it. LSA is an ergot alkaloid and the main psychoactive constituent of morning glory seeds. LSA is chemically related to LSD and is said to produce similar effects, although the extent to which it does is unclear. LSA was first described in 1932 as part of an investigation into the alkaloids found in ergot. In 1947 it was synthesized and tested for human activity by Albert Hofmann. The intramuscular administration of a 500 microgram dose produced a tired, dreamy state with an inability to maintain clear thoughts. In 1970, LSA was detected as a constituent in Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds, which were being ground up into capsules and sold on the street as mescaline. Today, LSA is typically consumed via morning glory and Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds. User reports described the effects of LSD as primarily sedating and dreamlike, with a mild to moderate psychedelic component. The psychedelic effects of LSA occur inconsistently and are not directly comparable to the effects of classical psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, or mescaline. LSA is described as primarily bodily and cognitive with little visual effects. Many users report serious nausea and bodily discomfort, or body load, when taking LSA-containing seeds. Like other psychedelics, LSA is not considered to be addictive. However, adverse reactions, such as severe anxiety, paranoia and psychosis are always possible, particularly among those who are predisposed to psychiatric disorders. It is therefore highly advised to use harm reduction practices if using this substance. Some people have asked me if I've ever used LSA in any form. A few years ago, I came into contact with some Hawaiian baby some morning glory seeds. Or the Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds? It was either one of them, but it was an LSA containing seed. And I had the opportunity to take it, but I didn't in the end. I was very interested to try out a new psychedelic, being a psychonaut, but I'm also very conscious of the fact that I have quite a few gastrointestinal issues in my own life, and I'm suffering with some health problems. You may have noticed that in some of the commentary sections. This is mainly due to genetics on my mum's side of the family. We've sort of been cursed with gallbladder problems and just gastritis and just general digestion problems and just gastrointestinal upset. And even worse for me, having been very addicted to ketamine, which has a immensely toxic effect on your gastrointestinal organs if abused on the regular, like how I was doing. This can exacerbate any existing problems, even regardless of how healthy I am in all my other aspects of life. I mean, the amount of gastrointestinal remedies I use on the daily is crazy, and I always eat very, very healthily, which shows me just how cursed I am with the GI problems of my my family tree. And obviously I've enhanced the worst aspects of that by abusing Ket for a long time. But yes, thankfully in recovery now. But sometimes things get worse before they get better, and I've noticed a lot of sensitivity to certain foods, and I'm having to change my diet up. But the way this relates to LSA was because I knew that whatever seeds I'd come into contact with were definitely going to make me extremely nauseous, and I didn't really fancy suffering an immensely discomforting body load just to have a new psychedelic experience. I didn't see this as like a pure intention. It was just more of like a desire to, I'm just going to try this new thing because I've got some sort of, I've had a bit of an egoic desire, I guess, in my early psychotic days to just try everything. Because, I don't know, I sort of deluded myself into thinking that I was expanding my mind, but actually I was just sort of on a bit of a tail-chasing journey. Curiosity kills the cat, and I had far too much curiosity in trying all this stuff, and it produced some quite unpleasant experiences with certain psychedelics. So I just passed up on the experience, passed up on the opportunity, because I was aware that my gastrointestinal problems are not going to mix very well with the seeds. But not really too bothered about it, especially since I've had extensive experience of LSD, and although they said to produce similar effects, I bet there are a few distinctions between the two, and you can get many different insights from various different psychedelics. They all sort of hold different keys to truth, as I like to say, whatever the truth may be, but it definitely, each psychedelic definitely expands your mind into different areas, and you can dial into different aspects of reality and philosophical questions, existential matters. So I'm sure I would have had a great philosophical experience of LSA, but I've noticed nowadays that I actually can't really consume mushrooms as they are. I can't actually eat them. I have to take them in a capsule form or in some other form like mushroom chocolates, where I don't actually have to digest the physical mushroom matter, and I notice I don't get any nausea then. So, and the nausea can really impact my my positive takeaway from the trip, because my mind just can't help but focus on the fact that I am suffering immensely in my bodily area, while my mind is in this immense state of euphoria and existential bliss. I'm tapping into the metaphysics of life, and the disconnect between those two experiences, the grand euphoria and the intense dysphoria, can really like throw my trip off, especially if I'm tripping with other people and I'm the one sort of like suffering in silence. And I don't really like to say when I'm suffering on a trip, because I don't want to sort of bend other people's trips about, oh God, is that going to happen to me, or if they get too worried about me. So I like to just sometimes suffer in silence when I'm in a group psychedelic experience. But either way, not really too bothered that I passed upon the opportunity to try LSA. I've had extensive psychedelic experience with the classical ones. But who knows, maybe in the future, when I figure out my digestion, gastrointestinal problems, I might be up for, enacting all the safety precautions that I already do every day. The amount of ginger and turmeric I consume is crazy. Not too much to the point where it is too much, because you can take too much of anything. I'm very conscious of the amount of sort of, stomach, gallbladder, liver, intestine remedies that I should be taking. But I guess it's just, I'm getting to that age now. I'm getting to that age now. I'll be in wheelchair soon. No, I definitely won't. I'm only 27. I find it funny when people think like the life comes to an end at 30 or something. But everyone's just so, a lot of young people, I used to think like this, where you just cling to the idea of being, I wish I was 18 forever. And I'm like, no, actually, I appreciate my maturity and adulthood quite a lot. But one thing I have to be aware of and conscious of is that your body, when it ages, it cannot handle the amount of toxins that you pollute it with in your younger years, and you will become more sensitive to it, and health problems will arise as you get older, but you've just got to handle them with consciousness, willpower, understanding and intelligence. And sometimes you just have to suffer through them I've actually, me making this report, me reading right now, I'm literally, the pain I'm having in my stomach is absolutely agonising, but I can't just sit about and just do nothing. I have to persevere. It's like with meditation. If you really want to get into serious meditation, you have to meditate every day or do it consistently, even in the face of the brutality of life, whether it's external, internal, or whatever. If it's anything negative going on, you've just got to, as David Lynch said, you've just got to sit your butt down and do it. So, yeah. All comes back to David Lynch. Bless him. What a man. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the other side. And don't worry about me too much. I really appreciate all your comments saying, oh, get well soon and stuff like that. I cannot express just how thankful I am for all of you guys as people and your support on top of that. Thank you so much. Love you all. God bless. And that's all, folks.